The sun has a way of finding the smallest gaps between the leaves of a heavy canopy, casting dancing circles of gold upon the forest floor that shift and fade with the passing breeze. Watching those fleeting shapes of light is much like watching the movement of our own thoughts as they drift through the vast landscape of the mind. There is a profound stillness available to everyone in this very second, a quiet sanctuary that does not require a long journey or a mountain climb to reach. It is simply the act of arriving where your feet already stand. So often, the heart wanders like a restless bird, searching for a branch to perch upon in the distant forests of tomorrow, or returning to the familiar shadows of yesterday, forgetting that the only air it can truly breathe is the air moving through the lungs right now. Think of a small flower blooming in a crack of a busy city pavement. It does not worry about the footsteps that might pass it by an hour from now, nor does it mourn the rain that fell last week. It simply opens its petals to whatever light is available, existing in a state of total honesty with the present. When we allow ourselves to settle into the current moment, we begin to discover that life is not a series of problems to be solved, but a direct experience to be felt. There is a deep, unspoken relief in letting go of the heavy luggage of expectation. We spend so much energy rehearsing for a future that may never arrive, or replaying a past that cannot be changed, yet the beauty of a bird's song or the cool touch of water on our hands can only be known when the mind stops its frantic pace and simply observes. In the ancient times, there was a young man who was known for his incredible speed and his obsession with reaching the horizon. He believed that if he ran fast enough, he could catch the sun and uncover the secrets of eternal happiness. He ran through meadows, over jagged rocks, and across scorching sands, never stopping to look at the scenery or speak to those he passed. His eyes were always fixed on that shimmering line where the earth met the sky. One afternoon, exhausted and breathless, he encountered an elderly monk sitting quietly by a small, unremarkable stream. The young man shouted as he ran past, asking how much further it was to the edge of the world. The monk did not stand up or point the way. He simply picked up a smooth stone from the water and held it out, saying that the horizon is a ghost that moves as you move, but the coolness of this stone is a truth you can hold right now. The young man stopped, his chest heaving, and for the first time in years, he looked down. He saw the way the water swirled around the monk's ankles, the moss clinging to the damp earth, and the tiny silver fish darting between the shadows. He realized that in his hurry to reach the end of the world, he had missed the world itself. This is the gentle trap many of us fall into. We treat the present as a mere stepping stone, a bridge we must cross to get to something better, something more important. But what if there is nothing more important than the way the light hits the wall in your room at this very minute? What if the most sacred act you can perform is simply to notice the weight of your body in your chair and the rhythm of your own heart? There is a story about a gardener who tended the grounds of a great monastery. He was not a scholar of the scriptures, nor did he spend hours in deep meditation in the halls. His task was simply to sweep the fallen leaves and care for the bamboo groves. One day, a visitor asked him how he remained so cheerful and calm despite the repetitive nature of his work. The gardener smiled and explained that when he sweeps, there is only the sound of the broom against the stone and the smell of the damp earth. He said that most people sweep while thinking of their lunch, or sweep while worrying about their debts, or sweep while wishing they were somewhere else. Because their minds are divided, they feel tired and bored. But when he sweeps with his whole being, the broom becomes an extension of his soul, and each stroke is a complete and perfect universe. This quality of undivided attention is what transforms a mundane chore into a moment of grace. It is the art of being wholehearted. When you listen to a friend, listen as if their words are the only sounds in existence. When you eat a piece of fruit, taste the sunlight and the rain that helped it grow. This is not a difficult technique that requires years of study, it is a return to our natural state. Children often live this way instinctively. They can spend an hour watching an ant carry a crumb across a porch, completely absorbed, completely alive. They do not judge the ant or wonder if watching it is a productive use of their time. They are simply there, witnessing the miracle of life in its smallest form. As we grow older, we tend to lose this simplicity. We layer our experiences with labels, judgments, and comparisons. We see a tree and instead of seeing the vibrant green and the rough bark, we think of the species, or how much it needs to be trimmed, or how it reminds us of a tree from our childhood. We move away from the direct contact with reality and into a world of concepts. But the path back to peace is always open. It begins with the breath. The breath is the ultimate anchor. It is always happening in the now. You cannot breathe for 5 minutes ago, and you cannot breathe for tomorrow morning. Every inhale is a fresh beginning, and every exhale is a complete letting go. By following the air as it enters and leaves the body, we give the mind a home to return to whenever it gets lost in the storms of worry. There was once a traveler who came across a village where everyone seemed exceptionally radiant and peaceful. He sought out the village elder and asked for the secret of their collective happiness. The elder told him that many years ago, a wandering teacher had left them with a single piece of advice, to never let their hands do one thing while their hearts were doing another. If they were drawing water from the well, their hearts were in the bucket. If they were weaving cloth, their hearts were in the shuttle. The traveler tried this for just one day and found that the constant friction in his mind began to dissolve. He realized that most of his stress came from the tug of war between his physical actions and his mental wandering. Awareness acts like a gentle light in a dark room. When you turn it on, the shadows of anxiety and fear do not necessarily disappear, but you can see them for what they are. You realize that most of the monsters you were afraid of are just piles of old clothes and furniture. We often fear the future because we imagine ourselves facing challenges without the strength we have now. But we forget that when the future arrives, it will arrive as the present, and we will have the resources of that moment to meet it. To be present is to trust that life is unfolding exactly as it should, and that we have the capacity to handle whatever appears on the screen of our awareness. Think of the ocean. On the surface, there may be crashing waves, white foam, and turbulent winds. It can look chaotic and frightening. But if you dive just a few meters below the surface, the water is calm and still. The deep ocean is not bothered by the weather on the surface. Our true nature is like that deep water. The thoughts and emotions that swirl around us are just the weather. They are not who we are. By practicing presence, we learn to descend into that quiet depth. We can acknowledge the waves without being tossed around by them. We can say to ourselves, there is a wave of sadness, or there is a wave of irritation, but I am the vast ocean that holds it all. A monk once spent years trying to find the essence of the teachings. He read every scroll and listened to every lecture, but he still felt a nagging sense of emptiness. One evening, while walking back to his hut, he saw a reflection of the full moon in a small puddle of water on the path. He stopped and looked at it. For a split second, his mind was completely still. He saw the moon in the puddle, and then he looked up and saw the moon in the sky. He realized that the light was the same. In that moment of pure seeing, without any thoughts about the moon or the puddle, he understood everything he had been searching for. The truth was not in the scrolls, it was in the quality of his own awareness in that very instant. When we are truly present, the boundary between us and the world starts to soften. We no longer feel like a separate, isolated ego struggling against an external environment. We feel a sense of connection and belonging. We see that the air we breathe is the same air the trees exhale, and the water in our veins is the same water that flows in the rivers. This interconnectedness is not a theory, it is a lived reality that becomes apparent when the noise of the ego subsides. We begin to act with more compassion and kindness, not because we are following a rule, but because we realize that hurting another is essentially hurting ourselves. The present moment is the only place where love can exist. You cannot love someone in the past, that is only a memory. You cannot love someone in the future, that is only an imagination. Love is a verb that can only be practiced right here, right now. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a clear mountain lake. If you throw a handful of gravel into the water, the surface becomes distorted with ripples. You can no longer see the colorful stones at the bottom or the reflection of the sky. But if you wait and let the water settle, the clarity returns on its own. Our minds are like that lake. Our constant stream of thoughts, worries, and desires are the gravel we throw into our own consciousness. We do not need to work hard to make the water clear, we simply need to stop throwing the stones. We need to give ourselves the permission to be still. This stillness is not a lack of movement, but a balance of heart. There is a beautiful story of a queen who was known for her wisdom and her ability to remain calm in the midst of political turmoil. One of her ministers asked her how she maintained such poise when everyone around her was losing their tempers. She led him to the palace gardens and pointed to a fountain. She asked him what made the fountain beautiful. The minister replied that it was the way the water rose into the air and sparkled in the light. The queen nodded but then pointed to the basin at the bottom. She said that the beauty of the upward spray is only possible because the water always returns to its source. She explained that throughout her day, no matter how busy she was, her mind always returned to the quiet basin of her breath. She never allowed herself to get so caught up in the spray that she forgot the stillness at the base. This return to the source is available to us every time we take a mindful breath. It is a way of recalibrating our internal compass. Often, we feel like we are falling behind in life, as if there is a pace we must keep up with to be successful or worthy. But nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. The seasons do not compete with each other. The spring does not try to outdo the winter. Each part of the cycle is necessary and has its own rhythm. When we align ourselves with the present, we step out of that exhausting race and into the natural flow of life. We find that we have enough time for everything that truly matters. Being present also means being present with our discomfort. We have a tendency to run away from pain, boredom, or loneliness. We distract ourselves with gadgets, noise, and endless activity. But when we run from our feelings, they only grow stronger in the shadows. Mindfulness invites us to turn around and face them with a sense of curiosity and gentleness. We can sit with a difficult emotion just as we would sit with a friend who is hurting. We don't have to fix it or change it immediately. We just have to offer it the space of our non-judgmental awareness. In that space, the intensity of the emotion often begins to shift. It is like holding a piece of ice in your hand. The warmth of your attention naturally causes it to melt. A village potter was once visited by a man who was desperate for a solution to his constant anxiety. The potter was shaping a clay bowl on his wheel, his hands covered in gray mud. He didn't stop his work but invited the man to watch. As the wheel spun, the potter's thumbs pressed into the center of the clay, slowly drawing up the walls of the vessel. He told the man that if his thumbs were too tense, the clay would collapse. If they were too loose, the bowl would be misshapen. The secret, he said, was a relaxed alertness. He told the man that anxiety is just the mind trying to shape the future before the clay is even on the wheel. He advised the man to stop trying to build the whole palace and instead focus on the pressure of his thumbs on the current inch of clay. This relaxed alertness is the key to living a mindful life. It is not about being stony or emotionless. It is about being fully engaged with life while remaining centered. You can feel the joy of a celebration, the sting of a loss, or the excitement of a new project, but you do it from a place of stability. You are the sky, and the clouds of experience are passing through you. The sky does not try to hold on to a beautiful white cloud, nor does it try to push away a dark storm cloud. It simply provides the space for both to exist and pass away. This perspective brings a tremendous sense of freedom. You are no longer a victim of your circumstances, but the vast space in which life happens. I remember hearing about a traveler who was caught in a sudden downpour while walking through a rural area. He ran to a small wooden shelter where an old woman was sitting, watching the rain. He was frustrated, complaining about how the rain had ruined his plans for the day. The old woman looked at him with kind eyes and said that the rain wasn't doing anything to his plans, his mind was doing that. To the rain, there are no plans, only the falling. To the earth, there is only the soaking. She suggested that instead of seeing the rain as an obstacle, he could see it as a performance. He sat down and for the next hour, he listened to the different sounds the drops made on the leaves, the wood, and the puddles. He noticed the way the air smelled fresh and metallic. When the rain stopped, he realized it was one of the most beautiful hours of his journey. Our lives are filled with these moments of hidden beauty, but we often walk right past them because we are looking for something else. We are looking for the big moments, the milestones, the achievements. But life is mostly made of small moments. The warmth of a cup in your hands, the way the light catches the dust motes in the air, the sound of a neighbor's laughter. When we cultivate presence, these small things start to glow with a quiet significance. We realize that we don't need a spectacular life to be happy. We just need to be awake to the life we already have. The practice of being in the here and now is also a profound act of kindness toward others. When you are fully present with someone, you are giving them the most valuable gift you possess, your attention. In a world where everyone is distracted and looking at screens, being truly heard and seen by another person is a rare and healing experience. It creates a bridge of empathy and understanding. You begin to see the common humanity in everyone you meet. You realize that just like you, they want to be happy, they want to be safe, and they want to be understood. This realization naturally softens the heart and reduces the impulse to criticize or judge. A long time ago, there was a group of people who lived in a valley surrounded by high mountains. They spent all their time looking at the peaks, dreaming of what lay beyond. They ignored the fertile soil, the clear streams, and the beautiful flowers in their own valley. They were always preparing for the climb, gathering ropes and sharpening tools, but they never actually started. They lived their whole lives in a state of preparation, never enjoying the home they already had. One day, a child pointed out that the mountains were beautiful to look at, but the valley was beautiful to live in. This is the essence of mindfulness. While it is fine to have goals and directions, we must not forget to live in the valley while we are here. The mind is a wonderful servant but a terrible master. When it runs on autopilot, it tends to dwell on the negative, the perceived threats, and the things that are missing. It creates a narrative of lack. But when we bring the light of awareness to the present, we often find that in this very moment, we have everything we need. We have the air to breathe, the ground to support us, and the capacity to experience the world. This sense of sufficiency is the root of true contentment. It doesn't mean we stop growing or changing, but we do so from a foundation of wholeness rather than a feeling of being broken. There was a famous artist who was once asked how he managed to paint such lifelike trees. He said that he didn't just look at the tree, he waited until he felt the tree looking back at him. He waited until the gap between him and the tree disappeared. This is the level of intimacy we can have with our own lives. We can wait until the gap between us and our experience vanishes. When you are walking, just be the walking. When you are breathing, just be the breathing. In that oneness, there is no room for anxiety or regret. There is only the pure, vibrant flow of existence. Consider the rhythm of the ocean tides. They come in and they go out with an ancient, unwavering patience. They do not struggle against the moon that pulls them. Our lives also have tides. There are times of abundance and times of quiet, times of connection and times of solitude. When we are present, we can ride these tides without being drowned by them. We learn to appreciate the high tide for its energy and the low tide for the treasures it reveals on the sand. Everything has its place and its purpose. By staying in the now, we remain in harmony with the natural movement of our lives. Think of a musician playing a beautiful piece of music. If they are thinking about the final note while playing the first bar, the performance will lack soul. They must be entirely inside each note as it is being played. Each sound must be given its full value. Our life is a long piece of music, and each moment is a note. If we hurry through the notes to get to the end, we miss the melody. But if we give our full presence to each note, the music becomes a masterpiece, regardless of how long it lasts or where it goes. The journey into the present is not a destination we reach once and for all. It is a path we choose to walk again and again. Every time we notice we have wandered off into a daydream or a worry, and we gently bring ourselves back to the sensations of the now, we are strengthening the muscle of awareness. There is no need for self-criticism when we get distracted. The act of noticing the distraction is itself a moment of mindfulness. It is a small victory. Over time, these moments of presence begin to thread together, creating a life that is more vibrant, more peaceful, and more deeply lived. There is a story of a traveler who was walking through a dense forest when he saw a tiger. He turned and ran, the tiger close behind him. He came to the edge of a cliff and, seeing a vine hanging down, he grabbed it and swung himself over the edge. As he hung there, he looked up and saw the tiger growling at him from above. He looked down and saw another tiger waiting for him at the bottom. To make matters worse, two mice, one white and one black, started gnawing at the vine he was clinging to. At that moment, he saw a wild strawberry growing near the edge of the cliff. He reached out with one hand, picked the strawberry, and ate it. How sweet it tasted! This story is a powerful metaphor for the human condition. The tigers represent our mortality and the inevitable challenges of life. The white and black mice represent the passage of days and nights that slowly wear away our time. Yet, even in the midst of such a precarious situation, there is always a strawberry. There is always a moment of sweetness, beauty, or grace available to us if we are willing to notice it. Mindfulness is the ability to taste the strawberry even when the tigers are present. It is the realization that the tigers do not take away the sweetness of the fruit, and the fruit does not make the tigers disappear. Both are part of the landscape. When we stop fighting reality, a great deal of energy is liberated. We often spend so much time wishing things were different that we don't have any energy left to deal with how they actually are. Acceptance is not the same as being passive or giving up. It is simply acknowledging the starting point. Once we accept that it is raining, we can put on a raincoat or find shelter. If we spend all our time complaining that it shouldn't be raining, we just end up wet and frustrated. Presence gives us the clarity to see exactly what is needed in each situation and the composure to act with wisdom. Think about the way you walk. Usually, we walk to get somewhere. Our eyes are on the door, the street corner, or the car. Our minds are already at the destination. But what if the purpose of walking is just to walk? What if each step is a way of kissing the earth with our feet? When we walk mindfully, we feel the shift of weight from the heel to the toe, the movement of the air against our skin, and the balance of our body. Each step becomes an act of gratitude and a declaration of being alive. This simple shift in perspective can turn a commute into a meditation. There was a woodcutter who was known for his incredible efficiency. He could cut more wood than anyone else, yet he never seemed to be in a rush. When asked for his secret, he said that he spent a significant portion of his time sharpening his axe. Most people, he observed, were so busy hacking away with a dull blade that they became exhausted and produced very little. Sharpening the axe is like taking the time to be present. It might seem like we are doing nothing, but it is actually the most productive thing we can do. It ensures that when we do act, our actions are precise, effective, and meaningful. As we move through our days, we can practice what is often called the pause. Before answering the phone, before opening an email, before starting the car, we can take one conscious breath. That one breath creates a small space between the stimulus and our response. In that space lies our freedom. Instead of reacting out of habit or irritation, we can choose a response that is aligned with our values. This practice of pausing helps to break the cycle of stress and allows us to move through the world with more intentionality and grace. There is an old tale about a man who was looking for a precious jewel he had lost. He searched the streets, the markets, and the dark corners of the city. He asked everyone he met if they had seen it. Finally, he went home, tired and defeated. As he sat down to rest, he felt something hard in his pocket. He reached in and found the jewel. He had been carrying it with him the entire time. Peace and presence are like that jewel. We look for them in vacations, in relationships, in successes, and in spiritual retreats. But they are always right here, tucked away in the pocket of the current moment, waiting for us to stop searching and simply notice. Nature is a wonderful teacher of presence. A tree does not try to be a different kind of tree. A river does not try to flow faster than the terrain allows. Everything in nature is perfectly itself, perfectly in the now. When we spend time in nature, our own internal rhythms begin to slow down and match the steady pulse of the earth. We remember that we are part of this grand, unfolding mystery. We see that the same intelligence that guides the stars and the seasons is also living through us. This realization brings a sense of profound security. We don't have to hold the whole world together, we just have to play our small, beautiful part in it. Think about the last time you were truly captivated by something, perhaps a sunset, a beautiful piece of music, or the eyes of a loved one. In those moments, your self seemed to disappear. There was no one there judging, comparing, or worrying. There was only the seeing, the hearing, or the feeling. That state of self-transcendence is the goal of mindfulness. It is the joy of being fully immersed in the experience of life without the interference of the ego. It is a state of pure being, and it is our most natural and healthy way of existing. There was a potter who worked in a village far away, creating vessels that were prized for their unique beauty. He said that the secret was not in his hands or his wheel, but in the space inside the pot. He explained that while the clay forms the walls, it is the empty space inside that makes the pot useful. Our lives are often so cluttered with activities, thoughts, and possessions that there is no space left. Mindfulness is the art of creating that internal space. It is the emptiness that allows us to be filled with the richness of life. Without that space, we are like a cup that is already full, unable to take in anything new or nourishing. Being present is not about ignoring the practicalities of life. We still need to plan for the future and learn from the past. But there is a big difference between planning for the future and worrying about it. Planning is a task we perform in the present. We sit down, we look at our resources, and we make a decision. Once the plan is made, we return to the now. Worrying, on the other hand, is a repetitive mental loop that serves no purpose and only drains our energy. Similarly, we can reflect on the past to gain wisdom, but we don't have to live there. We visit the past like we visit a library, to look something up, and then we come back home to the present. Imagine your mind is a guest house. Every day, new guests arrive, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. The practice is to welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still, treat each guest honorably. They may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. This perspective changes our relationship with our inner world. Instead of being afraid of our thoughts and feelings, we become a curious and hospitable host. There was a group of travelers who were crossing a desert. They were thirsty and exhausted, and they kept seeing mirages of oases in the distance. They would run toward them, only to find more sand. One member of the group, however, walked steadily, focusing only on the next step. He didn't look at the horizon or chase the mirages. He stayed present with his breath and the feeling of his feet on the ground. Eventually, he was the one who found the real well, because he hadn't wasted his energy on illusions. The future and the past are often like those mirages. They look real from a distance, but when we try to inhabit them, they vanish. The only real water is in the well of the present. Mindfulness is often described as heartfulness, because it involves a quality of warmth and kindness. It is not a cold, clinical observation. It is a tender attending to our experience. When we notice we are suffering, we can offer ourselves the same compassion we would offer to a child who has fallen and scraped their knee. We can say, "This is a moment of suffering, and it is okay to feel this way." This self-compassion is the fuel that allows us to stay present even when things are difficult. It creates a safe inner environment where healing can take place. I often think about the way a master archer operates. They don't just focus on the bullseye. They are aware of their breath, the tension in their muscles, the weight of the bow, and the direction of the wind. They are present with the entire process. If they only think about hitting the target, their body becomes stiff and their aim becomes shaky. By being present with the doing, the result takes care of itself. In the same way, if we are present with the process of living, the quality of our life naturally improves. We don't have to force it. A young student once asked a master how long it would take to achieve enlightenment. The master replied, 10 years. The student, being impatient, asked, "What if I work twice as hard and practice day and night?" The master smiled and said, "Then it will take 20 years. The student was confused and asked why. The master explained that when one eye is fixed on the destination, you only have one eye left to find the path. To be present is to have both eyes on the path. It is to understand that the path and the destination are not two different things. Each step on the path of presence is itself a moment of arrival. Consider the simple act of listening to the wind in the trees. You cannot hear the wind that blew yesterday, and you cannot hear the wind that will blow tomorrow. You can only hear the rustle of the leaves right now. If you are thinking about your grocery list, you might hear the sound, but you won't truly hear it. There is a richness and a texture to reality that is only accessible when the mind is quiet. This richness is the source of true joy. It is a joy that doesn't depend on things going our way, but on the simple fact of being awake to the world. There was a legendary weaver who was asked to create a tapestry that depicted the entire history of the world. She worked for decades, but when she was finished, the tapestry was just a single, solid color of deep blue. When the king asked where the history was, she explained that if you look closely at each thread, you will see the stories of kings and peasants, wars and peace, love and loss. But when you step back and see the whole, it is just one vibrant, living presence. Our lives are like those threads. Up close, they seem complicated and full of drama. But from the perspective of the present moment, they are all part of the same beautiful, unified fabric of existence. We often think that we need more information or more knowledge to be happy. We read books, listen to podcasts, and attend workshops. But knowledge is just a map. Presence is the territory. You can study a map of the mountains for years, but it will never give you the cool air on your face or the smell of the pine needles. We have enough maps. What we need is to step out of the library and into the forest. We need to move from the world of about into the world of is. This transition is the most important journey we can ever take. In one of the old stories, a wanderer found a lamp and, upon rubbing it, a spirit appeared and offered to answer any one question about the universe. The wanderer thought for a long time and then asked, "What is the most important time? Who is the most important person? And what is the most important thing to do?" The spirit replied, "The most important time is now, because it is the only time you have any power. The most important person is the one you are with at this moment, because who knows if you will ever be with another. And the most important thing to do is to be kind to that person, because that is the only reason we are here." These three answers provide a perfect guide for a mindful life. They pull us back from the abstractions of the mind and into the vivid reality of our immediate surroundings. They remind us that our power and our purpose are always right here. When we live with this awareness, life becomes much simpler. We don't have to figure out the meaning of life on a grand scale. We just have to find the meaning in this breath, this conversation, this moment of work. There is a quiet dignity in being present. It is the dignity of a mountain that stands unmoved by the clouds that drift across its face. It is the dignity of a river that flows around every obstacle without losing its way. When we are present, we embody this same resilience and grace. We are not easily swayed by the opinions of others or the fluctuations of fortune. We have found our anchor in the only place that is truly stable, the eternal now. Think of a pilot flying a plane through a thick fog. They cannot see the landmarks or the horizon. They have to rely entirely on their instruments. In the fog of our busy lives, mindfulness is our instrument panel. It tells us where we are and which way we are heading. It allows us to navigate through the uncertainty with confidence. Even when we can't see the big picture, we can trust the readings of our own awareness. We can see the altitude of our emotions and the direction of our thoughts. A gardener was once asked how he managed to grow such magnificent roses. He said that he didn't grow the roses, the earth did. His job was simply to remove the weeds and make sure the soil was healthy. The roses knew how to bloom on their own. Our inner peace is like those roses. We don't have to make ourselves peaceful. Peace is our natural state. Our job is simply to remove the weeds of distraction and the rocks of judgment that prevent our natural peace from flourishing. When we clear the space of the present moment, peace blossoms effortlessly. There was a sailor who was caught in a calm at sea. His boat didn't move for days, and he became incredibly frustrated and bored. He spent his time pacing the deck and cursing the wind. Then, he decided to stop fighting the stillness. He started looking over the side of the boat and saw a world he had never noticed before. He saw the incredible shades of blue in the water, the strange and beautiful creatures that lived near the surface, and the way the stars reflected in the mirror-like sea at night. He realized that the wind hadn't stopped his journey, it had just changed the nature of it. When the wind finally returned, he felt a sense of sadness to leave the stillness behind. This is the gift of the present moment. It shows us that even in the waiting times, even in the boring times, there is a whole world of beauty and wonder waiting to be discovered. We just have to stop looking for the wind and start looking at the water. We have to stop looking for what is missing and start looking at what is here. The present moment is never empty. It is always full of life, if only we have the eyes to see it. Every morning, we are given a fresh start. The world is made new again. The light is different, the air is different, and we are different. If we can meet the day without the baggage of yesterday, we can experience the world with a sense of awe and discovery. We can see the people in our lives with fresh eyes, noticing things we may have missed for years. We can approach our work with a sense of curiosity rather than routine. This freshness is the essence of a mindful life. It is the ability to live each day as if it were the first day and the last day. There is a story of a stonecutter who was dissatisfied with his life. He wished to be a powerful king, and his wish was granted. But then he saw the sun and felt its heat was more powerful than him, so he wished to be the sun. Then he saw a cloud that could block the sun's light, and he wished to be a cloud. Then he saw the wind that could blow the cloud away, and he wished to be the wind. But the wind could not move a great stone, so he wished to be the stone. Finally, as a stone, he felt the sharp bite of a chisel. He looked down and saw a stonecutter. He realized that the stonecutter, with his focused attention and simple tools, was the most powerful of all. We often chase after power, status, or wealth, thinking they will give us the control we crave. But true power lies in the ability to be present and focused, just like the stonecutter. When we are present, we are no longer at the mercy of our desires and aversions. We are the masters of our own attention. This is the only real freedom there is. Everything else is just a temporary arrangement of circumstances. The person who can stay present in a prison is more free than the person who is lost in their own worries in a palace. The practice of mindfulness is also a practice of deep listening. Most of the time, we listen with the intent to reply. We are already formulating our response before the other person has finished speaking. But true listening is an act of presence. It is listening with the whole body, with the whole heart. It is creating a space where the other person feels truly heard and understood. This kind of listening can heal relationships and dissolve conflicts. It is a form of love that doesn't require words. Think of the way a cat sits. It is completely relaxed, yet completely alert. If a feather moves, the cat notices. If a bird chirps, the cat is aware. It is not thinking about the past or the future. It is just being a cat, perfectly settled in the now. We can learn a lot from this quiet, attentive presence. We can learn to sit with ourselves in a way that is both peaceful and awake. We can learn to be comfortable in our own skin, without the need for constant movement or distraction. There was a man who was obsessed with finding the perfect place to live. He traveled the world, visiting tropical islands, bustling cities, and quiet mountain villages. But everywhere he went, he found something wrong. The weather was too hot, the people were too loud, or the food was too strange. Finally, he met a wise woman who told him that the perfect place was not a location, but a state of mind. She said that if he could find peace within himself, he would be at home anywhere. If he couldn't find that peace, he would be a stranger even in paradise. This is the ultimate promise of the present moment. It is the portable home we carry with us wherever we go. As we conclude this part of our journey together, let's take a moment to simply feel the air on our skin and the ground beneath us. Let's acknowledge the miracle of being alive at this very second. There is nowhere to go, nothing to do, and no one to be, other than who we are right now. This is the starting point and the ending point of all wisdom. It is the simple, radiant truth of the here and now. The beauty of life is not something we have to create, it is something we have to uncover by being present. Like the sun behind the clouds, it is always there, waiting for the sky of our mind to clear. The stillness that resides within the gaps of our breath is much like the vast, quiet space between the stars, a silence that does not signify absence but rather a profound and shimmering presence. When we stop trying to fill every second with noise or productivity, we allow the world to speak to us in its own language, a language of rustling leaves and distant bird calls that we often miss in our hurry to reach some imaginary finish line. Every morning, the light enters the world with a gentle persistence, never asking for permission and never demanding anything in return, and we can choose to meet our lives with that same open-hearted clarity. There was once a traveler who found himself lost in a dense, fog-bound valley where every path seemed to lead back to the same gnarled old tree. He was filled with a growing sense of panic, his mind racing through all the terrible things that might happen if he remained trapped in the mist. He sat down by the tree, his heart pounding, and for a long time, he did nothing but breathe in the damp, cool air. As his breathing slowed, he noticed that the fog was not a solid wall but a moving, shifting dance of tiny water droplets. He began to listen to the drip of moisture from the branches and the soft muffled sound of the earth beneath him. In that state of quiet observation, he realized that he didn't need to see the whole path to take the next step, he only needed to see the ground directly beneath his feet. This is the secret of moving through the complexities of our existence without becoming overwhelmed. We often try to solve the entire puzzle of our lives at once, worrying about the middle and the end before we have even fully experienced the beginning. But the only way to build a sturdy house is to focus entirely on the brick that is currently in your hand. If your mind is already on the roof while you are laying the foundation, the walls will inevitably be crooked. By bringing our full attention to the task at hand, whether it is washing a window, writing a letter, or simply walking across a room, we infuse our actions with a quality of excellence and peace that ripple outward into everything else we do. In a village tucked away in a quiet corner of the world, there lived a weaver who was famous for the incredible strength and beauty of her cloth. People came from far and wide to ask how she managed to create such perfection. She would always show them her hands and tell them that she didn't think about the finished garment or the coins she would receive for it. She simply focused on the tension of a single thread. She said that if she loved each thread as it passed through her fingers, the cloth had no choice but to be beautiful. If she felt frustrated or rushed, the thread would snap or the pattern would become uneven. Her work was not a means to an end, it was a continuous expression of her state of being. We can apply this same gentle focus to our interactions with the people around us. How often do we look at a friend or a family member while our minds are miles away, thinking about a meeting, a chore, or a past grievance? To truly see another person is a rare and precious form of generosity. It means setting aside our own internal monologue and becoming a clear mirror for their experience. When we are present with someone, we aren't just hearing their words, we are feeling the weight of their heart and the light in their eyes. This level of connection is where true healing begins, and it doesn't require any special skills, only the willingness to be right here, right now, without an agenda. Imagine a river flowing over a bed of smooth stones. The water doesn't argue with the stones or try to push them out of the way. It simply flows around them, adapting its shape to whatever it encounters. The river is always moving, yet it is always the river. Our lives are similar in their constant state of flux. We face obstacles, transitions, and unexpected turns, and our instinct is often to resist or complain. But if we can adopt the fluidity of the water, we find that we can move through challenges with a sense of ease. Resistance creates friction and exhaustion, but presence allows us to glide through the currents of life with grace. There is a story about a king who was so troubled by the weight of his responsibilities that he couldn't sleep. He called for a wise hermit and asked for a way to find peace amidst the chaos of the court. The hermit handed him a small, plain wooden ring and told him to keep it with him at all times. On the inside of the ring, a single sentence was carved. The hermit said that this sentence was the only truth that never changed. The king looked at the ring and read the words, "This too shall pass." When things were going well, the ring reminded him not to get too attached to his pride. When things were difficult, the ring reminded him that the pain was not permanent. By staying anchored in the present, we naturally develop this perspective of, "This too shall pass." We see that emotions are like weather patterns, they arrive, stay for a while, and eventually move on. A storm can be frightening and loud, but it is not the sky itself. When we are caught in the grip of a difficult feeling, we can remember that we are the sky, and the storm is just a temporary visitor. We don't have to fight the storm, we only have to wait it out with a sense of patient awareness. This understanding brings a tremendous sense of stability and courage to our lives. Think of a musician playing a flute in a quiet courtyard. Each note is born from silence, hangs in the air for a fleeting second, and then returns to silence. If the musician tries to hold on to a note after it has ended, the music becomes a distorted noise. To create a beautiful melody, they must let go of each note the moment it is played to make room for the next. Our experiences are like those notes. If we cling to a moment of joy or a moment of sorrow, we prevent the next part of our life from unfolding. We must learn to live with open hands, receiving everything fully and letting it go just as fully. This practice of letting go is not about being indifferent or cold. It is about realizing that life is a river, not a stagnant pond. When we try to freeze a moment in time, we lose the vitality of the flow. True joy comes from being able to appreciate the beauty of a flower while knowing that its petals will eventually fall. In fact, it is the very fragility and temporary nature of life that makes it so precious. If a sunset lasted forever, we would eventually stop looking at it. It is because the colors fade and the light disappears that we stand in awe of those few minutes of brilliance. A stonecutter once spent many months carving a massive statue of a lion. A young boy would come and watch him every day, curious about the process. When the statue was finished, the boy looked at the magnificent beast and asked the stonecutter how he knew the lion was inside the rock. The stonecutter replied that he didn't put the lion there, he just chipped away everything that wasn't the lion. Mindfulness is very much like that. We don't have to build a peaceful version of ourselves from scratch. We just have to chip away the layers of unnecessary worry, the heavy stones of regret, and the jagged edges of judgment until our natural, inherent peace is revealed. Often, we find ourselves waiting for something to happen before we allow ourselves to be happy. We wait for the weekend, for a promotion, for the children to grow up, or for the house to be paid off. We treat the present as a waiting room for a future that is always just out of reach. But the truth is that life is happening in the waiting room. The quality of our existence is determined by how we inhabit the in-between moments. If we are not happy now, with whatever we have, we are unlikely to be happy when we get what we think we want, because the habit of dissatisfaction will move with us into the future. Consider the simple act of preparing a meal. We can do it while distracted by the television or a mental argument, or we can do it with a sense of ceremony and presence. We can notice the vibrant colors of the vegetables, the rhythmic sound of the knife on the cutting board, and the way the kitchen fills with the aroma of spices. When we cook mindfully, the act itself becomes a form of nourishment, long before we even sit down to eat. We are feeding our souls with the richness of the direct experience. This is how we turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. There was a student who asked his teacher what the most important lesson in life was. The teacher pointed to a nearby tree and asked the student what he saw. The student described the height of the tree, the shape of the leaves, and the texture of the bark. The teacher shook his head and said that the most important thing was not the tree itself, but the way the tree was able to stand perfectly still while the wind blew through its branches. He explained that to live wisely is to be like that tree, deeply rooted in the earth, yet flexible enough to sway with the winds of change, all while maintaining a quiet center. This quiet center is always available to us, no matter how chaotic our external circumstances might be. It is the part of us that remains untouched by the drama of the world. By returning to our breath and the sensations of the present moment, we reconnect with this inner sanctuary. It is like coming home after a long and exhausting journey. We can set down our heavy burdens and simply rest in the awareness of being alive. This rest is not a form of laziness, it is a vital replenishment of our spirit. As we walk through our days, we can practice a gentle noticing. Notice the feeling of your clothes against your skin. Notice the temperature of the air as you step outside. Notice the subtle shift in your mood as you enter a different room. These small acts of noticing act like anchors that prevent us from being swept away by the currents of thought. They remind us that reality is always right here, and it is far more interesting and varied than any story our mind can tell us. We don't need to search for deep meaning, we only need to pay attention. Imagine you are a traveler standing on a high mountain pass. Behind you lies the valley you have just crossed, with all its challenges and triumphs. Ahead of you lies a vast, unknown landscape shrouded in mist. You could spend your time looking back with nostalgia or looking forward with anxiety, but if you do, you will miss the incredible view from where you are standing right now. You will miss the crisp mountain air, the golden light hitting the peaks, and the sense of accomplishment in your own heart. Presence is the courage to stay on the pass and look at the view, without needing to be anywhere else. There is a story of a famous musician who was asked to play for a group of people in a very small, simple room. There was no stage, no fancy lighting, and no professional acoustics. Some of his assistants were worried that the performance would be a failure. But the musician walked to the center of the room, closed his eyes, and began to play. He played with such intensity and presence that the walls of the room seemed to disappear. The listeners felt as if they were in a vast cathedral. He explained later that the environment didn't matter because the music was coming from a place within him that was already infinite. We carry that same infinity within ourselves. When we are truly present, we tap into a source of energy and creativity that is not dependent on outside conditions. We find that we have the patience to handle a difficult person, the resilience to deal with a setback, and the capacity to find joy in the smallest things. This is the true meaning of spiritual wealth. It is not about how much we have, but how much of ourselves we bring to what we have. A person who is fully present with a simple bowl of rice is richer than a person who is distracted at a feast. The mind is often like a restless puppy, constantly running after every new scent or movement. We don't need to punish the puppy for wandering, we just need to gently and patiently bring it back to our side. Every time we bring our attention back to the now, we are training ourselves in the art of living. It is a slow and steady process, and it requires a great deal of kindness toward ourselves. There will be days when the mind is particularly noisy and days when it is naturally quiet. The goal is not to reach a state of perfect, permanent silence, but to remain a friendly observer of whatever is happening. There was once a potter who lived on the edge of a great forest. He spent his days gathering clay from the riverbank and shaping it into beautiful vessels. One day, a wealthy merchant came to his shop and offered him a huge sum of money to move to the city and produce pots for the king's palace. The potter thought about it for a moment and then declined. He said that in the forest, he could hear the wind in the trees and watch the seasons change. He said that if he moved to the city, his hands might become faster, but his soul would become slower. He realized that the quality of his life was more important than the quantity of his wealth. This wisdom is something we can all learn from. We are often pressured to do more, earn more, and achieve more, but we rarely ask ourselves what we are sacrificing in the process. We sacrifice the quiet moments, the slow walks, and the deep conversations. We sacrifice our ability to be present. By choosing to slow down and focus on the current moment, we are reclaiming our lives from the frantic pace of modern society. We are saying that our time and our attention are sacred, and we choose to spend them on the things that truly nourish us. Think of the way a candle flame behaves. It is constantly changing, never the same from one second to the next, yet it provides a steady and reliable light. Our presence is like that flame. It is dynamic and ever-shifting, yet it brings a sense of clarity and warmth to our surroundings. When we are present, we light up the room for others. Our calm becomes their calm, our presence gives them permission to be present too. In this way, mindfulness is not just a personal practice, but a service we provide to the world. A group of sailors were once caught in a terrible storm at sea. The waves were towering, and the wind was howling. Most of the sailors were crying out in fear, but the captain stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the compass and his hands steady on the wheel. He wasn't ignoring the storm, he was fully aware of the danger. But he knew that if he allowed his mind to be as chaotic as the waves, the ship would surely sink. His outward calmness was a reflection of his internal focus. He was present with the ship, the wind, and the water, and that presence saved them all. Life will always have its storms. We cannot control the weather, but we can control our reaction to it. Presence is our anchor and our compass. It doesn't make the waves go away, but it allows us to navigate through them with wisdom and courage. It reminds us that no matter how loud the wind blows, there is a part of us that is as steady as the captain at the helm. This realization is the source of a peace that the world cannot give and cannot take away. Every time we look into the eyes of another person, every time we feel the sun on our faces, and every time we take a deep, conscious breath, we are participating in the great dance of existence. There is no need to wait for a special occasion to be happy. This moment, exactly as it is the special occasion. It is the only moment we have, and it is absolutely perfect in its own unique way. Let us cherish it, breathe it in, and be fully here for it. The sound of a bell ringing in a distant temple can remind us to return to ourselves. But we don't need a temple or a bell, we can use anything as a reminder. The sound of a car horn, the chime of a clock, or the feeling of our own heartbeat can all be bells of mindfulness. They are invitations to stop our mental wandering and come back to the richness of the now. They remind us that we are not just characters in a story we are telling ourselves, but the living, breathing awareness that is experiencing the story. In the old chronicles, there is a story of a king who wanted to find the most beautiful sound in the world. He traveled to the great cities and heard the finest orchestras and singers. He went to the mountains and heard the roar of waterfalls and the song of rare birds. But none of these sounds completely satisfied him. Finally, he returned to his palace and sat alone in his garden at midnight. He heard the sound of the wind moving through the grass and the soft, almost imperceptible sound of a single leaf falling to the ground. He realized that the most beautiful sound in the world was the sound of silence being gently touched by life. We can only hear that sound when we are quiet within ourselves. When the mind is full of chatter, we are deaf to the subtle music of the world. Mindfulness is the process of turning down the volume of our internal noise so that we can hear the symphony of existence. It is a journey from the head to the heart, from thinking to being. And it is a journey that never ends, because every moment is a new beginning, a new opportunity to wake up and see the world as if for the very first time. The way we treat ourselves in the present moment sets the tone for our entire lives. If we are harsh, judgmental, and impatient with ourselves now, we are building a life of tension and unhappiness. But if we can be kind, patient, and curious with ourselves, we are building a life of ease and joy. This kindness starts with accepting ourselves exactly as we are, with all our flaws and imperfections. We don't have to be perfect to be present, we just have to be willing to show up for our own lives. Imagine a garden that has been neglected for many years. It is full of weeds and thorns. You could spend your time complaining about the state of the garden, or you could pick up a shovel and start clearing a small patch of earth. You don't have to clear the whole garden today, you only have to focus on the small space in front of you. Over time, that small space will grow, and eventually, the whole garden will be transformed. Our minds are like that garden. Each moment of presence is a seed of peace that we plant in the soil of our awareness. There was a wise man who was once asked what he had gained from a lifetime of meditation and mindfulness. He laughed and said that he hadn't gained anything, but he had lost a great deal. He had lost his anger, his fear, his anxiety, and his need to be right. He had lost the heavy armor he had spent years building around his heart. In losing those things, he had found the freedom to be truly himself. He had found that when you strip away everything that is not essential, what remains is a profound and unshakable sense of well-being. The light of the moon doesn't try to change the landscape it shines upon. It simply illuminates everything with a soft, silver glow. It shows the jagged rocks and the quiet pools with equal clarity. Our awareness should be like that moonlight. We don't need to judge our thoughts or try to force our emotions to change. We only need to shine the light of our attention on them. In that light, things naturally begin to settle and find their rightful place. We see that we are much larger than our problems, and that the space of our awareness is vast enough to hold everything. As we move forward, let us carry this sense of quiet observation with us. Let us be interested in our own lives, not as a project to be finished, but as a mystery to be explored. Let us find joy in the process of discovery, and let us be grateful for the opportunity to be here, in this incredible, fleeting, and beautiful moment. The world is waiting for us to wake up and see it, not through the lens of our thoughts, but through the clarity of our presence. Each step we take with awareness is a step toward home, and that home is always exactly where we are. Think of a child holding a dandelion and blowing on it, watching the tiny seeds drift away on the wind. There is no thought of the past, no worry about the future, only the pure, focused joy of that single act. We can reclaim that same quality of being. We can learn to look at the world with the same wonder and the same total engagement. When we do, we find that the world is far more magical and vibrant than we ever imagined. We find that the here and now is not a limitation, but an infinite gateway to peace and fulfillment. The river continues to flow, the birds continue to sing, and the earth continues to turn. We are part of this magnificent movement, and we are perfectly safe within it. By staying present, we align ourselves with the rhythm of the universe. We find our place in the grand tapestry of life, and we realize that we are exactly where we are supposed to be. There is a deep, quiet joy in this realization, a joy that stays with us through the highs and the lows, the sunshine and the rain. It is the joy of being truly alive, truly awake, and truly present. The gentle sound of the wind moving through the leaves is a reminder that the world is breathing along with us, an ancient rhythm that has existed long before we arrived and will continue long after we depart. When we allow ourselves to become quiet enough to hear that breath, the barriers we have built between ourselves and the rest of existence begin to crumble. We often feel like a small, isolated island in a vast and sometimes hostile ocean, but in the clarity of the present moment, we see that we are not the island at all. We are the ocean itself, expressing itself as a wave for a brief and beautiful period of time. This shift in perspective is like waking up from a long, restless dream into the bright and steady light of a summer morning. There was a humble potter in a remote province who spent his entire life working with the same gray clay from a nearby stream. A scholar once visited him and asked if he ever felt bored doing the same thing day after day, year after year. The potter smiled, his hands never pausing as he smoothed the rim of a bowl, and told the scholar that he had never once made the same bowl twice. He explained that the clay is different every morning, the moisture in the air changes the way it feels, and his own heart is never the same from 1 hour to the next. He said that if he were looking at the bowls with his mind, they might all look alike, but because he looks with his presence, each one is a completely new world. We often miss the infinite variety of our lives because we are looking through the dull lens of habit. We see the same faces, walk the same streets, and perform the same tasks, and we tell ourselves that we know what to expect. But nothing is ever truly the same. Every sunrise has a unique palette of colors, and every conversation carries a nuance that has never existed before. When we bring our full awareness to the now, we peel away the gray film of familiarity and see the world in its raw, vibrant, and unpredictable glory. This is how we keep the heart young and the spirit curious, finding wonder in the steam rising from a cup or the way a shadow stretches across the floor. Imagine a mountain that has stood for millions of years. It has seen empires rise and fall, forests grow and burn, and countless generations of animals pass across its slopes. The mountain does not try to hold on to the spring or push away the winter. It simply remains, rooted and vast, allowing the clouds to drift past its peaks and the rain to wash its stones. When we practice being present, we are cultivating the stability of that mountain. We are learning to stand firm in the midst of our own internal weather, the changing moods and shifting thoughts that often make us feel unstable. We realize that while the weather changes, the mountain remains. There is an old story of a man who was searching for the water of life, a legendary spring that was said to cure all sorrows. He traveled across vast deserts and climbed frozen peaks, always looking toward the next horizon. One day, exhausted and parched, he collapsed in his own small backyard. As he lay there, his cheek against the cool grass, he heard the faint sound of bubbling water. He realized that a small, clear spring had been flowing right beneath his feet all along, hidden by the weeds of his own neglect. The water of life is not at the end of a long journey, it is the quality of our own consciousness when it is fully settled in the here and now. We spend so much of our lives running toward a future peace, thinking that if we can just get through this week, or this project, or this difficulty, then we will finally be able to relax and be happy. But peace is not a destination, it is the way we travel. If we do not find peace in the middle of the struggle, we will not find it at the end of the road. Presence is the act of stepping out of the race and realizing that the finish line is a ghost. Every step of the journey is the destination itself. When we wash the dishes, the purpose is not just to have clean plates, but to be fully present with the water and the movement of our hands. Think of a bird perched on a thin, swaying branch. The bird is not afraid of the branch breaking, not because it trusts the branch, but because it trusts its own wings. Our wings are our awareness. No matter how much the world sways or how fragile our circumstances might seem, we can remain steady if we trust our ability to be present. When we are anchored in the now, we are not at the mercy of the wind. We can observe the swaying without being terrified by it. We understand that security does not come from making the world stand still, but from our own capacity to remain awake and adaptable. In a quiet temple nestled in the hills, a young monk was once tasked with carrying a full bowl of oil across a crowded courtyard without spilling a single drop. If he succeeded, he would be given a great treasure. He walked with such intense focus that he didn't hear the music playing, didn't see the beautiful dancers, and didn't notice the friends who called out to him. When he reached the other side, the master asked him if he had enjoyed the beauty of the courtyard. The monk admitted he had seen nothing but the oil. The master then told him to go back and do it again, but this time, to see the beauty while still holding the oil. This is the balance of a mindful life. We have our responsibilities, our bowl of oil, that we must care for, but if we focus on it so narrowly that we miss the beauty of the world, our lives become dry and strained. Conversely, if we lose ourselves in the distractions and forget the oil, our lives become chaotic and messy. Presence is the ability to hold both, to be responsible and focused while remaining open and appreciative of the richness surrounding us. It is the art of being fully engaged with our tasks while keeping our hearts wide open to the song of the world. The mind is a master of time travel, constantly pulling us into the what if of the future or the if only of the past. It creates elaborate stories about things that have not happened and may never happen, filling us with unnecessary anxiety. But the body is always in the present. The body is always feeling the air, hearing the sounds, and experiencing the physical reality of the moment. By bringing our attention back to the sensations in our body, we pull the mind back from its travels. We ground ourselves in the truth of the now. We feel the weight of our feet on the floor, the rise and fall of our chest, and the subtle tingling in our fingertips. There was a gardener who was known for growing the most fragrant jasmine. When asked for his secret, he said that he spent time every evening just sitting with the plants, not doing anything, not weeding or watering, just being with them. He said that the plants could tell the difference between a person who was in a hurry and a person who was truly there. When we are truly there for our own lives, our own inner fragrance begins to emerge. We become more gentle, more observant, and more compassionate. This transformation doesn't happen through force or effort, it happens through the simple, quiet power of our presence. Imagine you are watching a movie in a theater. If you get completely caught up in the story, you might feel fear, anger, or sadness as the plot unfolds. You might forget that you are sitting in a comfortable chair and that the images on the screen are just flickering lights. Mindfulness is like remembering you are in the theater. You can still enjoy the movie, you can still feel the emotions, but there is a part of you that knows it is just a show. You are not at the mercy of the drama. This observer perspective gives us a sense of space and freedom. We see that our thoughts and emotions are just scenes in a movie, and we are the screen on which they are projected. Every time we encounter a difficult person or a frustrating situation, we are being given an opportunity to practice presence. Instead of reacting with our usual habits of irritation or defense, we can pause and simply notice the reaction as it arises. We can feel the heat in our chest or the tightness in our jaw. By observing the physical sensation, we create a small gap of freedom. In that gap, we can choose a different response. We can choose to respond with a calm word or even a silent wish for the other person's well-being. This is how we break the ancient cycles of conflict and create a more peaceful world, one breath at a time. A stonecutter was once asked to describe his work. He said that he wasn't just breaking rocks, he was listening to the stone. He said that every piece of granite has a way it wants to be shaped, and his job was to find that way. If he hit the stone too hard or in the wrong place, it would shatter. But if he was patient and present, the stone would open up for him. Our lives are much like that granite. If we try to force our lives to be a certain way, we often cause ourselves and others a great deal of pain. But if we can be present and listen to the unfolding of our experience, we find a more natural and graceful way to move forward. Being present also means embracing our own humanity, including our mistakes and our limitations. We often have a very harsh inner critic that tells us we should be better, faster, or more successful. This critic lives in the world of comparison and judgment, which is always away from the now. Presence is the antidote to that criticism. When we are fully here, we see that we are doing the best we can with the tools we have at this moment. We can treat ourselves with the same kindness we would show a dear friend. We can acknowledge our errors without being crushed by them, seeing them as part of the learning process of being alive. Think of a clear, still lake in the early morning. It reflects the sky and the trees with perfect accuracy. If you throw a stone into the water, the ripples distort the reflection. Our thoughts and judgments are like those stones. When the mind is busy and reactive, we cannot see reality as it is, we only see the distorted ripples of our own perceptions. But when we allow the mind to settle into the present, the water becomes still again. We start to see things with a new clarity. We see that many of the things we were worried about are not as big as they seemed, and many of the things we took for granted are actually quite beautiful. There was a famous artist who was once asked how he managed to draw a perfect circle with a single stroke of his brush. He replied that he didn't draw the circle, he simply stayed out of the way of the brush. He spent years learning to quiet his mind so that his hand could move with the natural flow of life. This is the goal of our practice, to stay out of our own way. We often block our own happiness and our own potential with our doubts, our fears, and our endless mental chatter. Presence is the way we clear that clutter so that the natural intelligence of life can move through us. Consider the rhythm of the tides once again. They do not hurry to reach the shore, and they do not struggle to return to the deep. They are in a state of perfect harmony with the moon and the earth. When we are present, we align ourselves with this same universal harmony. We find that things tend to fall into place more easily. We are in the right place at the right time, and we say the right thing without having to think too much about it. This state of flow is not reserved for athletes or artists, it is a natural byproduct of being fully awake to the moment. Imagine a large, ancient tree in the middle of a busy city. Cars are honking, people are rushing by, and the air is filled with noise and exhaust. Yet the tree remains peaceful. It drinks the rain, absorbs the sunlight, and slowly grows its leaves. It doesn't try to compete with the noise or escape the city. It simply exists in its own space, offering a bit of shade and oxygen to everyone who passes. We can be like that tree. Even in the midst of a busy, noisy life, we can maintain our own inner sanctuary of presence. We can be a source of calm and stability for those around us, simply by being who we are. There is a story of a traveler who came across a bridge that was being built over a wide river. He asked one of the workers what he was doing, and the man replied that he was laying stones. He asked another worker, and the man said he was earning a living for his family. He asked a third worker, and this man looked up with a bright smile and said, "I am building a path for people to meet." All three men were doing the same physical task, but their experience was completely different. The third man was present with the purpose and the meaning of his work. When we are present, even the most mundane task becomes an act of service and a source of joy. Presence is not something we have to manufacture, it is something we return to. It is our natural state, the place we were born from and the place we will eventually return to. It is like the blue sky that is always there, even when it is covered by thick clouds. We don't have to create the sky, we just have to wait for the clouds to pass, or better yet, realize that we are the sky and not the clouds. This realization brings a deep sense of relief. We don't have to do mindfulness, we just have to be mindful. It is a subtle but profound shift from effort to ease. A young woman once asked a wise teacher how she could find her true purpose in life. The teacher told her to go into the forest and find a single leaf that was perfectly still. The woman searched for hours, but every leaf she saw was trembling in the breeze or falling to the ground. Finally, she sat down and became very still herself. As her own mind quieted, she noticed a leaf that was perfectly still in the center of a spider's web, balanced by the tension of the silk. She realized that her purpose was not a specific task she had to find, but a way of being in balance with the world around her. This balance is what we find in the present moment. It is the point where our internal world and the external world meet in a state of harmony. It is a place of great power and great peace. When we are in that state, we don't need to ask what our purpose is, because we are living it. We are being a conscious, loving presence in the world. This is the greatest contribution any of us can make. It doesn't require a title, a degree, or a special talent. It only requires our attention and our heart. As we move through the day, we can find small islands of presence to anchor ourselves. We can be fully present for the first sip of tea, for the sensation of the steering wheel in our hands, or for the sound of a bird outside the window. These small moments are not insignificant, they are the building blocks of a mindful life. They are the stitches that hold the fabric of our days together. By stringing these moments together, we create a life that is rich, deep, and meaningful. We find that we don't need a lot of exciting events to have a good life, we just need to be present for the life we have. Think of a master gardener who knows exactly when to prune a branch and when to leave it alone. They don't act out of impulse or impatience, they act out of a deep understanding of the plant's nature. This is the kind of wisdom that presence brings to our own lives. We begin to see the natural timing of things. We see when it is time to speak and when it is time to be silent, when it is time to act and when it is time to wait. We stop fighting against the current and start moving with it. This makes our lives much more efficient and much less stressful. There was a group of people who were trapped in a dark cave. They were afraid and were bumping into each other, trying to find the way out. Then, one person managed to light a small candle. The light was not very bright, but it was enough for everyone to see where they were and to move more carefully. Mindfulness is like that small candle. It doesn't solve all our problems instantly, but it gives us enough light to see our next step. And as we move forward together, our collective light becomes brighter and more steady. When we are present, we are also more aware of the impact of our words and actions on others. We see the subtle shift in someone's expression when we speak unkindly, or the way their eyes light up when we offer a sincere compliment. This awareness naturally leads to a more ethical and compassionate way of living. We don't need a list of rules to tell us how to behave. Our own presence is our guide. We act with kindness because we can see that it makes the world a better place, and we avoid harm because we can feel the pain it causes. Imagine you are a sailor on a vast ocean at night. You can't see the land, but you can see the stars. The stars have been used for centuries to guide travelers across the trackless deep. Presence is like those stars. It is a steady, unchanging reference point that we can use to navigate through the uncertainty of our lives. Even when the waves are high and the wind is cold, the stars are there, silent and bright. By keeping our eyes on the stars of the present moment, we can always find our way home. The path of presence is a path of constant discovery. Every day, every hour, every breath is a chance to see the world in a new way. There is no end to the depth of what we can learn when we are truly paying attention. We find that the more we look, the more beauty we see. The more we listen, the more music we hear. And the more we open our hearts, the more love we feel. It is a journey of endless wonder, and it is a journey that is available to everyone, regardless of their circumstances. There was an old man who sat by the side of a busy road every day, just watching the people and the carts go by. Some people thought he was lazy, and others thought he was a bit strange. One day, a curious traveler asked him what he was doing. The old man replied that he was practicing being a witness. He said that most people were so busy being the actors in their own plays that they never got to see the beauty of the play itself. He said that by sitting still, he could see the whole world passing by in a single afternoon. He could see the joy, the sorrow, the effort, and the stillness of life, all at once. We don't have to sit by the side of the road to be witnesses to our own lives. We can be the witness while we are working, while we are eating, and while we are talking. We can be both the actor and the audience. This dual perspective is one of the most powerful tools of mindfulness. It allows us to participate fully in our lives while remaining centered in our quiet, observing awareness. We are in the world, but we are not lost in it. We are like a lotus flower that grows in the mud but remains pure and beautiful above the water. As we continue on this journey, let us remember to be gentle with ourselves. The mind will wander, and we will get caught up in our dramas again and again. That is just the nature of being human. The secret is not to never wander, but to always return. Every time we return to the present moment, we are starting fresh. We are like a child taking their first steps, full of wobbles and falls, but also full of the excitement of discovery. Each return is an act of courage and a celebration of life. The world is a magnificent teacher, constantly offering us lessons in presence. The changing seasons, the cycles of the moon, the growth of a plant, and the rhythm of our own breath are all pointing us toward the same truth. We are part of a vast, intelligent, and beautiful whole, and we are perfectly situated in the center of it. By staying present, we honor that truth. We live our lives with a sense of gratitude and a sense of responsibility. We see that every moment is a precious gift, and we do our best to be fully here to receive it. Think of a musician who has spent their whole life practicing their instrument. When they finally perform, they are not thinking about the notes or the technique. They are just being the music. They have become one with the sound. This is the ultimate goal of our practice, to become one with our lives. To move through our days with such presence and such heart that there is no longer a separation between us and our experience. We are the breath, we are the walk, we are the conversation. In that oneness, there is a peace that is beyond words. The light that bathes the world in the early hours of the morning has a particular way of making everything feel as though it has just been created, a soft and silver clarity that whispers of new beginnings. If we sit very still and watch the way the shadows slowly retreat from the garden, we can feel a similar retreat of the clutter within our own minds. The worries that seemed so large and solid in the middle of the night begin to lose their shape when met with the direct, wordless reality of the present. We find that we are not the stories we tell ourselves about our failures or our fears, but the vast and silent space in which those stories appear and disappear like mist over a lake. This realization is like finding a solid rock to stand on in the middle of a rushing stream, a point of absolute stability that remains even when the water is high and the current is strong. There was a humble woodcarver who lived on the edge of a great forest, known for creating figures that seemed almost ready to breathe. A traveler once asked him how he was able to capture such life in a simple piece of oak. The woodcarver explained that he never began with a fixed idea of what he wanted to make. He would hold the wood in his hands for a long time, feeling its grain, its weight, and its hidden knots. He said that he was not trying to impose his will on the wood, but rather listening for what the wood wanted to become. He believed that if he was patient enough and present enough, the wood would tell him exactly where to place his chisel. His work was not a struggle against the material, but a conversation with it, a dance of mutual respect between his hands and the heart of the tree. We often move through our days trying to force our lives into a specific shape, as if we are trying to carve a statue out of a rock that doesn't want to be changed. We fight against our circumstances, we push against time, and we exhaust ourselves trying to make things go our way. But what if we adopted the approach of the woodcarver? What if we spent more time listening to the grain of our own lives? By being present with what is actually happening, rather than what we think should be happening, we find a more natural flow. We see that every situation, even the ones we find difficult, has its own internal logic and its own hidden beauty. When we stop fighting reality, we find that reality is often much more supportive and creative than we ever imagined. Imagine a grandfather sitting on a porch with his grandchild, watching the fireflies emerge as the twilight deepens. The child is jumping around, trying to catch the light, while the grandfather simply sits and enjoys the flickering dance. The child is focused on the result, on having the light in their hands, but the grandfather is focused on the experience, on the coolness of the air and the magic of the moment. We spend much of our lives like that child, chasing after results and outcomes, thinking that happiness is something we can capture and keep. But happiness is more like the light of the firefly, it is beautiful precisely because it is fleeting and cannot be possessed. When we sit in the grandfather state of presence, we see that the light is already everywhere, and we don't need to catch it to enjoy it. In the old chronicles of a distant land, there is a tale of a gardener who was tasked with tending a hidden courtyard that belonged to no one. Because he had no master to please and no one to judge his work, he worked with a rare kind of freedom. He didn't plant flowers to impress passers-by or to win prizes. He planted them because he loved the feeling of the soil between his fingers and the sight of a seed breaking through the earth. He was entirely present for the act of gardening itself. Over time, His courtyard became the most beautiful place in the world, not because he tried to make it so, but because every plant was infused with the quality of his undivided attention. This is the power of being wholehearted in everything we do, no matter how small or hidden our task may be. The breath is our most faithful companion in this journey back to the now. It is the thread that connects the mind to the body and the soul to the world. When we breathe in, we are taking in the vitality of the universe, and when we breathe out, we are releasing everything that is no longer needed. This simple cycle is a perfect model for how to live. We receive the current moment fully, and then we let it go to make room for the next. There is no need to hold on to the breath, for the next one is always waiting. Similarly, there is no need to hold on to our experiences, for life is an endless stream of fresh arrivals. By trusting the breath, we learn to trust the rhythm of existence itself. There was once a traveler who found a small, polished stone in a dry riverbed. It was perfectly round and sat comfortably in the palm of his hand. He decided to carry it with him as a reminder of his journey. Whenever he felt stressed or rushed, he would reach into his pocket and touch the smooth surface of the stone. He found that the stone had a way of grounding him, reminding him of the ancient, slow time of the earth. He realized that the stone didn't need to do anything to be worthy, it was enough just to be. We are like that stone. We don't need to achieve great things or be perfect to have value. Our value is inherent in our existence. When we are present, we touch that inherent worth and stop looking for it in the approval of others. Think of a master calligrapher at work. They dip their brush into the ink, take a single deep breath, and move across the paper with a fluid, confident stroke. There is no hesitation, no second guessing, and no fear of making a mistake. The calligrapher is not thinking about the finished character, they are the movement of the brush itself. If they think about how the character will look once it's finished, the flow is broken and the line becomes shaky. Our life is the paper, and our presence is the brush. Each moment is a stroke that can never be erased or repeated. By being fully present for the stroke, we create a life that is a work of art, full of integrity and grace. We often treat our thoughts as if they are solid facts, especially the ones that make us feel bad about ourselves. If a thought says, "I am not good enough," we believe it as if it were a law of nature. But mindfulness teaches us that thoughts are just mental events, like clouds passing through the sky. They are not the sky itself. We can watch a thought arise, stay for a moment, and then fade away, without having to believe it or act on it. We can say to ourselves, there is a thought of inadequacy, rather than, I am inadequate. This small shift in language creates a vast space of freedom. We are no longer the victims of our mental chatter, we are the spacious awareness that observes it. There is a story of a young man who was very impatient to learn the secrets of the universe. He sought out a wise woman who lived in a cave and begged her to teach him everything she knew. She agreed, but only on one condition, that he would fetch water from a distant well every day for a year without complaining. The young man thought this was a waste of time, but he agreed. At first, he was miserable, thinking only of the lessons he was missing while he walked back and forth with his buckets. But as the months passed, he started to notice the way the light changed on the path, the sound of the wind in the pines, and the steady rhythm of his own footsteps. By the end of the year, he realized that the walk was the lesson. He didn't need the wise woman to tell him the secrets of the universe, for he had already found them in the simplicity of his daily task. Often, the most profound spiritual practice is not something we do on a cushion or in a temple, but how we handle the inconveniences of life. When we are stuck in traffic, when the internet is slow, or when someone is rude to us, we are being invited into the present. These moments are like bells of mindfulness, calling us back to our center. Instead of seeing them as obstacles to our peace, we can see them as the very fuel for it. We can practice staying calm and curious in the middle of the mess. We can breathe into the irritation and watch it dissolve. This is where the real work of transformation happens, in the ordinary and sometimes messy details of our day. Imagine you are a tree in a winter forest. The leaves are gone, the ground is frozen, and the world is silent. You are not producing anything, you are not blooming, and you are not growing taller. You are simply standing there, resting in a state of deep, inner stillness. This winter state is just as important as the blooming of spring. We all need periods of non-doing, where we simply rest in our own being without any pressure to achieve or perform. Presence allows us to honor these quiet cycles. We see that resting is not a waste of time, but a necessary gathering of energy for the next season of growth. There was a group of weavers who were famous for their intricate patterns. One day, a visitor asked how they were able to keep track of such complex designs without making a mistake. One of the weavers explained that they didn't try to remember the whole pattern. They only focused on the single thread they were currently weaving. They trusted that if they placed each thread correctly, the pattern would take care of itself. This is a beautiful way to think about our lives. We don't need to have our whole life figured out. We only need to be present for the single thread of the current moment. If we live each moment with awareness and kindness, the overall pattern of our lives will naturally be one of beauty and meaning. Consider the nature of a mirror. A mirror reflects whatever is in front of it, whether it is a beautiful flower or a pile of rubbish. It doesn't judge the reflection, it doesn't try to hold on to the flower, and it doesn't get dirty from the rubbish. It remains clear and unaffected. Our awareness is like that mirror. It can reflect any thought, emotion, or experience without being diminished by it. When we are present, we are inhabiting that mirror-like quality of the mind. We see the world as it is, without the distortion of our preferences and aversions. This clarity allows us to move through the world with a sense of lightness and freedom. There is an old story of a king who was obsessed with finding a painting that perfectly depicted the meaning of peace. He offered a great reward, and many artists brought their works. Some painted quiet sunsets, others painted still lakes or sleeping children. But the king chose a painting of a violent waterfall crashing over a jagged cliff. In the corner of the painting, on a small branch overhanging the turbulent water, was a tiny bird sitting in its nest, sleeping peacefully. The king explained that peace is not the absence of noise or trouble, but the ability to remain calm in the heart of it. Mindfulness is the nest that allows us to sleep peacefully even when the waterfalls of life are roaring all around us. Every time we eat, we have an opportunity to connect with the entire universe. We can think about the sunlight and rain that grew the vegetables, the earth that nourished them, and the many hands that brought the food to our table. When we eat with this awareness, a simple meal becomes a sacred act of gratitude. We are not just refueling our bodies, we are acknowledging our deep interconnectedness with all of life. We taste the flavor more deeply, and we feel a sense of abundance that has nothing to do with the amount of food on the plate. This is the difference between eating for survival and eating for the soul. Think of a child playing with a cardboard box. To the child, the box is not just a piece of trash, it is a rocket ship, a castle, or a dragon's cave. They are entirely immersed in the world of their imagination, yet they are also entirely present with the physical object in their hands. They have a quality of total play that we often lose as we grow older. We start to see things only in terms of their utility or their cost. But when we are mindful, we can reclaim some of that childlike wonder. We can see the magic in the mundane and the extraordinary in the ordinary. We can find joy in the simple play of light and shadow, or the texture of a piece of wood. There was a wise man who was once asked what the most important word in any language was. He thought for a moment and then said, "Yes." He explained that he didn't mean agreeing to everything people asked, but saying yes to the present moment. Most of our suffering comes from saying no to what is happening. We say, "No, it shouldn't be raining," or "No, I shouldn't be feeling this way," or "No, this person shouldn't be acting like this." This internal no creates a state of constant conflict and resistance. When we say yes to the reality of the now, the conflict ends. We accept the moment as it is, and from that state of acceptance, we can act with much more clarity and wisdom. Imagine you are a mountain climber. You are tired, your muscles are aching, and the summit is still far away. You could spend your time looking up and feeling discouraged by how much further you have to go, or you could focus on the single step you are taking right now. You can feel the grip of your boot on the rock, the rhythm of your breath, and the strength in your legs. By focusing on the step, the climb becomes manageable, even enjoyable. You find that the joy is not just in reaching the top, but in the effort and the presence of each movement. Life is a long climb, and mindfulness is the art of enjoying the steps. There is a story of a great teacher who was dying. His students gathered around him, crying and asking how they would find the truth without him. The teacher pointed to a lamp burning by his bed and said, "Be a lamp unto yourselves." He meant that the truth is not something that can be given by another, it is something that each person must find within their own awareness. Presence is that lamp. It lights up our own path and shows us the way forward. We don't need to follow anyone else's light if we can learn to trust our own. When we are present, we are connected to our own inner wisdom, which is far more reliable than any external teacher. Often, we feel like we are falling behind in some invisible race. We look at what others have achieved and feel like we are not doing enough. But nature does not hurry, and everything is accomplished. A flower does not look at the flower next to it and try to grow faster, it simply blooms when its time has come. When we are present, we step out of that exhausting culture of comparison. We realize that we have our own unique timing and our own unique path. We can be happy for others' success without feeling diminished by it. We find a sense of contentment that comes from being exactly who we are, where we are. Think of the way a small stream handles an obstacle like a fallen log. It doesn't stop and complain, it doesn't try to push the log out of the way, and it doesn't get frustrated. It simply flows over it, around it, or through the small gaps underneath. It remains a stream, moving toward the ocean with a quiet and steady persistence. Our lives are also moving toward a great ocean, and we will encounter many logs along the way. Presence allows us to be like that stream. We can adapt to our challenges without losing our essence. We can remain fluid and moving, even when the path is blocked. There was a famous musician who was once asked how he was able to play with such soul. He said that he didn't play the notes, he played the silence between the notes. He realized that the music was born from the silence and returned to it, and that the silence was what gave the notes their meaning. Our lives are also made of notes of activity and silence of rest. Most of us are so focused on the activity that we ignore the silence. But it is in the silence of the present moment that we find the true meaning of our lives. It is the background on which the whole story of our existence is written. Every conversation we have is an opportunity to practice deep listening. We can listen not just to the words, but to the tone of voice, the pauses, and the emotions behind the words. We can listen with our whole being, creating a space of safety and respect for the other person. This kind of listening is a form of meditation in action. It pulls us out of our own self-centered concerns and into a genuine connection with another human being. We find that when we truly listen, we often understand people in a way that words alone could never convey. We see their hopes, their fears, and their common humanity. Imagine you are standing in a large field on a windy day. The grass is waving, the trees are swaying, and the clouds are racing across the sky. You can feel the wind pushing against you, trying to move you. You have two choices. You can try to stand perfectly stiff and resist the wind, which will eventually make you tired and sore, or you can allow your body to move slightly with the wind, like a blade of grass. By being flexible and present, you can withstand the wind without any effort. This is how we handle the winds of change and difficulty in our lives. By being present and flexible, we can stay upright without the strain of resistance. There is a story of a woman who was very worried about her future. She went to a wise man and asked him to tell her what would happen to her. The wise man took her to a river and asked her to look at the water. He asked her where the water that was in front of her right now would be in 5 minutes. She said it would be further down the river. He then asked her where the water that was further up the river would be in 5 minutes. She said it would be in front of her. The wise man smiled and said, "The future is just the present that hasn't arrived yet. If you take care of the water that is in front of you now, the water that comes later will be just as clear." This is the ultimate secret of a peaceful life. We don't need to worry about the future if we can learn to be fully present with the now. The quality of our future is determined by the quality of our present. If we cultivate awareness, kindness, and peace in this moment, those qualities will naturally flow into the next moment and the one after that. We are building our future right now, with every breath and every thought. This gives us a tremendous sense of agency and hope. We are not the victims of destiny, we are the creators of our own experience, one mindful moment at a time. As the sun begins to set, the world takes on a different kind of beauty. The colors become deeper and the shadows become longer. There is a sense of completion and rest in the evening air. We can meet the evening of each day with that same sense of peace. We can look back on our day with a sense of gratitude, acknowledging what we have learned and what we have experienced, without any regret. We can let go of the day's events as easily as the sun sinks below the horizon, knowing that the night is a time for rest and renewal. Presence is a gift that we give to ourselves and to the world. It is the key that unlocks the door to a life of depth, meaning, and joy. It is a path that is always open, always waiting for us to take the next step. No matter how far we may have wandered into the forests of worry or the deserts of regret, the present moment is always just one breath away. It is the home we never truly left, the sanctuary that is always within us. Let us continue to walk this path together, with curiosity in our eyes and peace in our hearts. The soft clicking of a clock or the distant hum of a city can be a reminder that time is a living, moving thing. We are not just passengers on this journey, we are the journey itself. By staying present, we fully inhabit our own lives. We don't miss the small details that make life worth living. We see the sparkle in a friend's eye, the intricate pattern of a leaf, and the steady beat of our own heart. We realize that we are part of something much larger and more beautiful than we can possibly imagine. The coolness of the evening air often carries the scent of damp earth and blooming jasmine, a subtle reminder that the world is constantly renewing itself in the quiet spaces between our busy thoughts. If we allow our awareness to expand into this stillness, we begin to feel the interconnectedness of all living things, a web of existence where every breath we take is shared with the trees, the birds, and the very wind that rustles the grass. There is a profound comfort in knowing that we are never truly alone, for we are always held in the embrace of the present moment, a sanctuary that remains untouched by the noise and distractions of the external world. We find that when we stop seeking outside ourselves for validation or peace, we discover a wellspring of contentment that has been flowing within us all along, waiting for us to simply be quiet enough to notice its presence. There was once a wandering monk who carried nothing but a small wooden bowl and a heart full of compassion. One afternoon, as he was walking through a bustling marketplace, a man who was deeply stressed and angry accidentally bumped into him, causing the monk to stumble. Instead of becoming upset, the monk simply looked at the man with a gentle smile and asked if he was all right. The man, surprised by this lack of hostility, stopped his frantic pace and began to apologize, explaining how overwhelmed he felt by his responsibilities. The monk replied that the weight he was carrying was not in his hands, but in his mind, and that by simply noticing the feel of the ground beneath his feet for a few seconds, he could set that weight down. In that brief exchange, the marketplace seemed to grow quiet, and the man felt a flicker of peace he hadn't known in years. This ability to remain centered amidst the chaos is the true mark of a mindful life. We often think that we need to find a quiet place in order to be at peace, but the most powerful peace is the one we carry into the middle of a storm. When we are present, we are like the deep water of the ocean, which remains calm even when the surface is whipped into a frenzy by the wind. We can acknowledge the noise, the pressure, and the demands of our daily lives without letting them penetrate our inner core. By staying anchored in the sensations of the now, we create a buffer of awareness that allows us to respond to challenges with clarity and grace rather than reacting with fear or irritation. Imagine a master weaver who is creating a tapestry of immense detail and beauty. Every single thread is placed with intention, and the weaver's eyes never stray from the point where the needle meets the cloth. They are not worried about how much is left to do, nor are they dwelling on the sections they finished yesterday. They are entirely surrendered to the current stitch. When we live our lives with this level of presence, we find that the big picture takes care of itself. We don't need to have a grand plan for every year or every decade, we only need to be faithful to the current moment. Each mindful action is like a thread of gold, and over time, these actions weave together to create a life of profound integrity and meaning. The breath is a bridge that we can cross at any time to return to the shores of the present. It is a natural rhythm that requires no effort, yet it provides everything we need to sustain our existence. When we consciously follow the breath as it enters the nostrils, fills the lungs, and leaves the body, we are performing the most fundamental act of meditation. We are telling our nervous system that we are safe, that we are here, and that we are okay. This simple practice can dissolve the tension in our shoulders and the tightness in our chests, allowing us to meet the world with a softer heart and a clearer mind. The breath is always available, a constant and reliable friend that never leaves our side. There was a young artist who felt frustrated because she couldn't seem to capture the true essence of a mountain she was painting. She spent hours focusing on the colors and the lines, but the painting felt flat and lifeless. An elderly teacher visited her studio and suggested that she stop painting for a few days and simply go and sit at the foot of the mountain. He told her to watch the clouds move across its peaks, listen to the sound of the melting snow, and feel the ancient weight of the stone. She did as he suggested, and when she finally returned to her canvas, her hand moved with a new kind of certainty. She wasn't just painting a mountain, she was expressing the feeling of being present with it. This is the difference between doing something and being something. Often, we find ourselves trapped in a cycle of comparison, looking at the lives of others and feeling that we are somehow falling behind. But this comparison is always based on an illusion, for we only see the surface of other people's lives and never the internal struggles or the quiet moments of their own experience. Presence is the ultimate cure for this dissatisfaction. When we are fully here, we realize that there is no one else to be and nowhere else to go. Our own life, with all its unique challenges and simple joys, is a masterpiece in progress. We can celebrate the successes of others without feeling diminished, for we are rooted in the solid ground of our own being. Consider the way a clear mountain stream handles a pile of dry leaves that has fallen into its path. The water doesn't stop to argue with the leaves or complain that they shouldn't be there. It simply flows around them, through them, and over them, continuing its journey toward the valley. The leaves might slow the water down for a moment, but they cannot stop the inevitable movement of the stream. Our thoughts and emotions are like those leaves. They may appear and linger for a while, but they are not the water. By staying in the flow of the present, we allow our experiences to move through us without becoming blocked or stagnant. We maintain our clarity and our direction, regardless of what falls into our path. There is an old story of a king who built a magnificent palace and filled it with the most beautiful treasures from across the world. He was very proud of his creation, but he found that he was constantly worried about thieves, fires, or the natural decay of the building. He went to a wise hermit and asked how he could find true security. The hermit led him to a small, unremarkable hut on the edge of the forest and invited him to sit on the bare earth. He told the king that true security is not found in things that can be lost or destroyed, but in the quality of awareness that remains when everything else is stripped away. He said that a person who is present with the simple sensation of sitting is more secure than a king in a golden fortress. This wisdom reminds us that our true wealth lies in our capacity for attention. In a world where everyone is competing for our focus, choosing to be present with ourselves is a radical act of self-love. It is a way of saying that we are worthy of our own time and our own interest. When we pay attention to our lives, we start to notice the small miracles that we usually ignore, the way the light catches a spiderweb in the morning dew, the rhythm of a distant rain, or the warmth of a kind word. These small details are the true building blocks of happiness, and they are only visible to those who are awake to the now. Imagine you are a gardener tending to a plot of land that has been in your family for generations. You don't try to force the roses to bloom in the middle of winter, nor do you get angry at the weeds for growing. You simply provide the right conditions, the water, the sunlight, and the care. You understand that growth happens in its own time and that your role is to be a supportive witness to the process. Our inner lives are like that garden. We don't need to force ourselves to be enlightened or perfectly peaceful. We only need to provide the conditions of presence and kindness, and the natural wisdom within us will bloom when it is ready. There was a group of travelers who were trying to find a legendary city of gold. They had maps and compasses, and they were constantly arguing about which direction to take. One traveler, however, decided to stop and help an old man who was struggling to repair his cart by the side of the road. While the others hurried ahead, he spent the entire afternoon in the dust, working with his hands and listening to the old man's stories. By the time the cart was fixed, the other travelers were long gone, and the sun was setting. But as he looked up, he saw that the light of the setting sun was hitting the nearby hills in a way that made them look as though they were made of solid gold. He realized that the city he was looking for was not a place, but a way of seeing the world. Presence allows us to find the gold in our ordinary lives. It transforms the mundane into the sacred and the routine into the remarkable. When we are present, a simple walk to the mailbox can be a journey of discovery, and a quiet conversation can be an exchange of deep wisdom. We stop waiting for the big events to make us happy and start finding joy in the texture of our daily existence. This shift doesn't require us to change our external circumstances, it only requires us to change the quality of our attention. It is the most accessible and profound transformation we can ever experience. Think about the way you listen to a favorite piece of music. You don't listen to the first note and then immediately jump to the last note to see how it ends. You listen to the whole piece, allowing each melody and each harmony to wash over you in its own time. You are present for the entire experience, from the first sound to the final silence. Our lives are like that music. If we are always looking toward the end, we miss the beauty of the middle. We miss the subtle changes in tempo and the unexpected notes that give the music its soul. By staying in the now, we allow the symphony of our lives to unfold in all its complexity and beauty. In a village near the mountains, there was a woman who was known for her incredible ability to heal people's hearts. When people came to her with their sorrows, she didn't offer advice or try to fix their problems. She simply sat with them and listened with her whole being. She gave them her undivided presence, and in that space of deep listening, people found their own strength and their own clarity. She used to say that presence is the most powerful medicine there is, because it reminds us that we are not our problems. We are the awareness that is bigger than any sorrow. This capacity for deep presence is something we can all cultivate. It begins with the intention to be here, right now, with whatever is happening. If we feel sad, we allow ourselves to be present with the sadness. If we feel joyful, we are fully present with the joy. We don't try to push anything away or hold on to anything too tightly. We are like the open sky, which allows the clouds to pass through without being changed by them. This non-judgmental awareness is the foundation of true emotional intelligence and resilience. It allows us to move through life with a sense of balance and equanimity. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a vast forest at night. You have a small lantern that lights up only the few feet of path directly in front of you. You can't see the end of the forest, and you can't see what's lurking in the shadows beyond the light. But as long as you focus on the space that the lantern illuminates, you can keep walking. You can take one step, and then the next, and the next. Presence is that lantern. It doesn't show us the whole future, but it shows us exactly what we need to see to take the next step in our lives. We don't need to fear the dark if we trust the light of our own awareness. There was a master archer who was asked to demonstrate his skill before a group of students. He took his bow, notched an arrow, and stood perfectly still for a long time. He didn't look at the target with intensity or ambition, he simply became one with the bow and the air. When he finally released the arrow, it flew straight into the center of the bullseye. He told his students that the secret was not in the aiming, but in the being. He said that if his mind was on the target, his hand would shake. But if his mind was in the moment, the arrow would find its own way. This is the essence of effortless action. When we are present, our actions become precise and natural, guided by an intelligence that is deeper than our conscious thoughts. As we move through the world, we can practice being gatekeepers of our own attention. We can notice when our minds start to wander into the past or the future, and gently bring them back to the present. We can notice when we start to get caught up in the stories we tell ourselves, and return to the simple reality of our breath and our body. This is a practice of constant return, a gentle and patient coming home to ourselves. It is not about being perfect, it's about being willing to start again and again, with a sense of curiosity and kindness. Think of a child building a sandcastle at the edge of the sea. They are completely absorbed in the work, carefully shaping the towers and the walls. They know that the tide will eventually come in and wash the castle away, but that doesn't stop them from enjoying the process of building it. They are present for the creation, and they are present for the dissolution. We can learn a lot from this equanimity. We can put our whole hearts into our work and our relationships, while knowing that everything in this world is temporary. This understanding doesn't make life less meaningful, it makes it more precious. There is a story of a famous poet who spent years trying to find the perfect word to describe the beauty of a sunset. He traveled to the most beautiful places in the world and read all the great works of literature, but he could never find a word that felt right. One evening, as he was sitting on a quiet beach, he saw the sun dip below the horizon and the sky turn a deep, vibrant violet. In that moment, he stopped trying to find a word and simply allowed himself to be filled with the beauty of the scene. He realized that the experience itself was the only word that mattered. Presence is the way we read the wordless poetry of our lives. The silence that follows a long and beautiful conversation is often more profound than the words themselves. It is a shared space of understanding and connection that doesn't need to be filled with noise. We can find that same fertile silence within ourselves whenever we choose to be present. It is the silence of the heart, a place of deep peace and renewal. From this silence, new ideas can grow, and old wounds can heal. It is the background on which the whole story of our lives is written, a timeless and unchanging presence that is always here, waiting for us to return. Every morning, when we wake up, we are given a fresh opportunity to be present. We can choose to meet the day with a sense of wonder and a commitment to stay awake to the now. We can notice the feeling of the blankets, the sound of the world waking up, and the rhythm of our own breath. By starting our day with presence, we set a tone of calm and clarity that can carry us through even the most challenging moments. We remind ourselves that we are the masters of our own attention, and that the quality of our lives is in our own hands. Imagine you are a tree that is being pruned by a gardener. Some of your branches are being cut away, and it might feel painful and confusing. But the gardener knows that by removing the dead wood and the overgrown branches, they are allowing more sunlight to reach your core and more energy to flow into your fruit. Mindfulness is like that pruning process. It helps us to let go of the habits, the worries, and the attachments that are no longer serving us. It allows our true essence to shine through more clearly, and it helps us to produce the fruit of kindness, wisdom, and peace. There was a man who lived in a small cabin in the woods and spent his days watching the seasons change. He said that he never felt bored because he was always learning something new from the forest. He learned about patience from the trees, about flow from the river, and about resilience from the mountain. He said that the forest was a great book that was always open, and that presence was the only thing he needed to read it. We are also surrounded by a world of wisdom, if only we have the presence to notice it. Every person we meet, every situation we encounter, and every breath we take is a teacher, offering us a lesson in the art of living. Presence is not a destination that we reach, it is a way of walking. It is a path that is always under our feet, no matter where we are or what we are doing. It is the simple and profound act of being alive and being aware of it. By choosing to stay in the now, we are choosing to live our lives to the fullest. We are choosing to see the beauty, to feel the love, and to experience the peace that is always here. It is the most beautiful and the most important choice we can ever make. The cooling embers of a day well lived have a way of casting a soft, amber glow on everything they touch, much like the gentle awareness that settles over a heart that has finally learned to stop running. When we no longer feel the need to chase the shadows of tomorrow or mend the tattered edges of yesterday, we find ourselves standing in a wide, open field of pure existence. This is where the true conversation begins, not in the noisy exchange of opinions, but in the shared silence of being alive together. It is a state of being where every leaf, every stone, and every passing cloud is seen as a dear friend, a fellow traveler in this grand, mysterious dance of light and shadow. We realize that the peace we were looking for was never a prize to be won, but the very air we have been breathing all along. There was an old woodcarver in a quiet village who was asked by a young apprentice how to know when a piece of work was truly finished. The master did not speak of measurements or the smoothness of the surface. Instead, he led the boy to a window and pointed at a tree standing in the center of the courtyard. He asked the boy when the tree would be finished. The boy replied that the tree is never finished, for it is always growing, always shedding leaves, always changing with the seasons. The master nodded and said that our life and our practice are exactly like that tree. There is no final point of perfection we must reach, only the continuous and beautiful process of unfolding in the light of the present. To be finished is to be dead, but to be present is to be eternally becoming. This sense of eternal becoming allows us to let go of the heavy burden of being perfect. We can embrace our flaws, our mistakes, and our uncertainties as the very things that make us human and beautiful. Just as a cracked bowl can still hold water and even find a new kind of elegance in its scars, our lives are made richer by the challenges we have faced and the lessons we have learned. When we are present, we don't see our imperfections as failures, but as the unique grain of the wood that shows we have lived. We find a quiet joy in the messy, unpredictable, and vibrant reality of our existence, realizing that the most beautiful gardens are often the ones that are allowed to grow a little bit wild. Think of a long, winding path through a forest that finally opens up to a vast, shimmering ocean. The path was necessary to get to the shore, with all its roots to trip over and its dense thickets to push through, but once you stand before the infinite blue of the sea, the path is no longer your focus. You simply stand there, feeling the salt spray on your skin and the steady pulse of the waves at your feet. Our journey into mindfulness is much like that. We use the techniques, the stories, and the breath as a path to lead us to the ocean of our own awareness. And when we arrive, we find that the ocean doesn't need a map or a destination, it simply is. We become one with that vastness, a state where the I who was searching dissolves into the isness of the world. There is a story of a group of stars that once looked down at the earth and felt a deep sense of pity for the humans who seemed so small and lost in time. But one star, the brightest among them, disagreed. It said that humans are the only part of the universe that can consciously witness the beauty of the stars. It said that when a person sits in the stillness of the night and looks up with a quiet heart, the entire universe is looking at itself through their eyes. This is the sacred responsibility and the incredible gift of being present. We are the eyes, the ears, and the hearts of the world. When we pay attention, we are not just doing something for ourselves, we are completing the circle of creation. Imagine a large, ancient bell that has been silent for decades. When it is finally struck, the sound is deep, resonant, and lingers in the air long after the physical strike has passed. Our presence is like that resonance. It doesn't end when we finish a meditation or a quiet walk, it carries over into the way we speak to our neighbors, the way we prepare our food, and the way we handle our frustrations. It becomes a steady, underlying hum that harmonizes our entire day. People may not know why they feel calmer in our presence, but they feel the vibration of our settled heart. This is how we change the world, not through loud proclamations or forceful actions, but through the quiet, steady radiation of our own peace. In the old scrolls, there is a legend of a traveler who reached the edge of the world and found a mirror that showed him not his face, but his true home. To his surprise, the mirror didn't show a distant paradise or a magnificent palace. It showed him the very spot where he was standing, the dusty road, the wild flowers, and the familiar sky. He realized that he had been walking away from his home his entire life, thinking it was somewhere else. The present moment is that mirror. It shows us that we are already home, that we have never been anywhere else, and that we have everything we need to be whole. The search ends not because we found something new, but because we stopped overlooking what was always there. The rhythm of our lives is much like the seasonal migration of birds, a movement that is guided by a deep, internal compass that knows the way even when the destination is not yet visible. By trusting the present, we are trusting that internal compass. We don't need to see the whole map to know we are on the right path. We only need to feel the alignment of our hearts with the now. Every act of kindness, every moment of patience, and every conscious breath is a sign that we are moving in the right direction. We find that the more we trust the present, the more life seems to support us in ways we never expected. There was a wise gardener who was asked how to deal with the thorns on a rose bush. He didn't suggest cutting them off or wearing thick gloves. He said to simply look at the rose. He explained that if you focus on the thorns, you will only feel the pain and the threat. But if you focus on the bloom, the thorns become a small and necessary part of the whole plant story. Our lives are filled with thorns of difficulty and loss, but they are always part of a larger blooming. Presence gives us the perspective to see the rose and the thorns together, without being overwhelmed by either. We learn to appreciate the beauty of the flower even more because we understand the sharpness of the thorns. Think of a single candle in a dark room. It doesn't try to fight the darkness or argue with it. It simply glows. And in its glowing, the darkness naturally retreats. Our awareness is that candle. We don't need to work hard to eliminate our fears or our anxieties. We only need to bring the light of our presence to them. In that light, the shadows of the mind lose their power to frighten us. We see that they were never as solid as we thought. We find a sense of bravery that doesn't come from having no fear, but from having a light that is stronger than any darkness. Every time we listen to someone with our whole heart, every time we feel the earth beneath our feet as we walk, and every time we offer ourselves a moment of genuine compassion, we are contributing to the healing of the world. We are creating ripples of presence that touch lives we may never even meet. It is a quiet revolution of the spirit, a return to the simplicity and the sincerity that is our birthright. We find that the most profound changes often happen in the quietest moments, in the space of a single breath or a shared smile. This is the beauty of the path we are walking together. The sun will continue to rise and set, the moon will wax and wane, and the seasons will follow their ancient cycle. We are part of this magnificent and orderly movement, a thread in a tapestry that is more beautiful and complex than we can ever fully grasp. By staying present, we honor our place in this whole. We live with a sense of wonder, a sense of gratitude, and a sense of deep, abiding peace. We realize that the here and now is not just a point in time, but the very heart of existence itself. And in that heart, we are always safe, always loved, and always home. As the light of our shared conversation begins to soften into the quiet of the evening, let us take one more breath together, a breath that carries all the wisdom, all the peace, and all the presence we have discovered. There is no need to hold on to these words, for the truth they point to is already alive within you. It is in the way your hands feel as they rest, the way the air moves through your room, and the steady, quiet beat of your own heart. This is the living Dharma, the wordless teaching of the present moment that is always being offered to those who are willing to listen. There was once a famous musician who, at the end of a long and celebrated career, was asked what his favorite piece of music was. He didn't name any of his grand symphonies or his complex compositions. He simply pointed to the sound of the wind in the trees outside his window. He said that the music of the world is always playing, and the greatest skill a musician can have is the ability to listen. May we all be such musicians, listening to the subtle and beautiful symphony of our own lives as it unfolds, note by note, breath by breath, in the perfect and eternal now. The path is always open, The light is always burning, and the invitation to return to yourself is always being whispered by the wind. No matter where you go or what you do, you carry the sanctuary of the present moment within you. It is the one thing that can never be taken away, the one place where you are truly free. Let us continue to walk this path with a light step and an open heart, trusting that every moment is a miracle and every breath is a gift. Everything we have shared, every story and every reflection, is like a handful of seeds that we have scattered together. Some will fall on stony ground, and some will be carried away by the wind, but some will find a home in the fertile soil of your heart and grow into something beautiful. You don't need to do anything to make them grow, just keep providing the sunlight of your attention and the water of your kindness. The growth will happen on its own, in its own time, according to the natural wisdom of your own soul. I am so grateful to have shared this space with you, to have walked these quiet paths together, and to have touched the stillness of the here and now. The journey continues, as it always does, in the very next breath you take. May that breath be a mindful one, and may your heart always be at peace in the beautiful landscape of the present.